There's something in the water, and it ain't good.
A new study finds that nearly half of the nation's drinking water contains potentially harmful forever chemicals.
Scientists estimate that PFAS are in the blood of almost every American.
Forever chemicals like PFAS have permeated much of the country's water supply for decades. And in eastern North Carolina, the Cape Fear River has been ground zero.
PFAS is a national and international issue. These contaminants are so ubiquitous. I would argue, though, that North Carolina is the epicenter of this situation. I'm Anissa Khalifa. This is The Broadside, where we tell stories from our home at the crossroads of the South. This week, why toxic contaminants are still in the water supply, and why some folks are losing faith in the government's efforts to get them out.
Storms, floods, and fires are ever more extreme. And yet, the Federal Emergency Management Agency is fighting for its life.
I've never been a big fan of FEMA.
FEMA's a disaster.
FEMA's a dirty word.
People are waking up in droves to the FEMA camps.
Can the agency survive the stories that have been told about it? And can we survive without FEMA? American Emergency, the movement to kill FEMA, is a brand new series from WNYC's On the Media. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Mom, can you tell me a story?
Sure. Once upon a time, a mom needed a new car.
Was she brave?
She was tired, mostly. But she went to Carvana.com and found a great car at a great price. No secret treasure map required.
Did she have to fight a dragon?
Nope. She bought it 100% online. From her bed, actually.
Was it scary?
Honey, it was as unscary as car buying could be.
Did the car have a sunroof?
It did, actually.
Okay, good story.
Car buying you'll want to tell stories about. Buy your car today on
Carvana.
Delivery fees may apply.
You're listening to this podcast, so I know you've got a curious mind. Here's a helpful fact you might not know yet. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average. Pop over to Progressive.com, answer some questions, and you'll get a quick quote with discounts that are easy to come by. In fact, 99% of their auto customers earn at least one discount. Visit Progressive.com and see if you can enjoy a little cash back. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $946 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2024 and May 2025. Potential savings will vary.
My name is Celeste Guajardo. I'm the environment reporter here at WUNC News.
So you covered a public meeting recently that was about water quality in North Carolina. Tell us about it. Where was it, and what was the topic of discussion?
This was a public hearing that happened in Raleigh in mid-April. The topic of discussion is something called the Proposed PFAS Monitoring and Minimization Plan.
Okay, and real quick, PFAS. It's a contaminant we hear about a lot here in North Carolina. What is PFAS?
So PFAS are toxic man-made chemicals, usually referred to as forever chemicals because they don't break down in the environment. And these PFAS chemicals are in the water, but also in nonstick cookware, in firefighting foam, cleaning products, food packaging, makeup. They're everywhere.
So take us to this public meeting now. What was the vibe in the room?
I've been to a lot of different public hearings, and I've heard a lot of angry public comments before, but this one felt different. This one felt personal.
If you are a people of faith, I pray the Lord gives you no rest until you make the right decision and you protect the public health.
Can we say water is life? Water is life.
Every single person who was speaking really personally connected with this, and I think it's because it's about the water. I mean, every person drinks water, and every person is entitled to clean water.
Regulation written by the regulated is not regulation, it's permission.
We need real action and health-based protection. Hold these chemical companies responsible.
Wow, a lot of high emotions and a lot of passion in that room. So who actually has the power to regulate water quality within the state government?
This authority lies with the Environmental Management Commission. This is the state's regulatory authority, the people who set all the environmental rules in the state. And this controversial proposal is coming from this commission.
So what is this proposed policy supposed to do?
This proposal, it's called the PFAS Monitoring and Minimization Plan. So the first part is monitoring, and industries that discharge PFAS into the water have to monitor their PFAS discharges. And then the second part is after you monitor, then you have to come up with your own reduction plan. And the plan will say, hey, y'all, we are going to reduce PFAS by this much, and this is how we're going to do it. That plan has to be approved by the local and state regulators, and then the plan is entered into any existing permits.
So what's the argument against this proposed policy?
A big criticism of this proposal is that it reads as if industry will be self-regulating. Critics say the reporting requirements are just not comprehensive enough. As written right now, the proposal only requires reporting for 3 kinds of PFAS, but there are thousands of different kinds of PFAS. So if only 3 are being reported, then that's not necessarily comprehensive of all the other kinds of chemicals that might be in the water as well.
Yeah.
And as far as the minimization part, well, the proposal as written does not include any numbers. There's no language that says, hey, y'all cannot exceed X number of PFAS in the water.
And how about the people in support of it?
Supporters of the plan, they say they're confident that this monitoring and minimization approach will result in PFAS reductions. They say this is an aggressive program to identify polluters at the source. Supporters also say that this is a first step in eventually reaching numeric limits, but they argue that we're still years away from that.
So, Celeste, let's zoom out for a minute. How did PFAS end up in the North Carolina water supply in the first place?
Well, back in 2017, almost 10 years ago, a group of researchers discovered that chemical company Chemours had been dumping PFAS into the Cape Fear River for decades.
Environment and health officials are raising questions about a contaminant found in the Cape Fear River.
Reported on a chemical in the Cape Fear River linked to cancer and other illnesses.
But the question everyone may want answered at this point is, can we drink the water? Well,
specifically, the pollution was coming from a facility in Fayetteville, and later on we also found that PFAS was getting into the groundwater and then contaminating private wells also.
There were many other PFAS in the water about which we knew nothing at all.
I recently met with Detlef Knappe at a bridge on the Haw River in the Piedmont region of North Carolina.
My name is Detlef Knappe, and I'm a professor at North Carolina State University in the Department of Civil Construction and Environmental Engineering.
He's basically the guy who opened up Pandora's box when it comes to PFAS. And he said that this discovery started off because he and his colleagues were actually looking at other types of contaminants in the Cape Fear River, but they had the technology to test for PFAS, and it just kind of started unraveling.
And it took us a long time to figure out the concentrations of those chemicals, but we knew they were present at really high levels, and I think that was probably the sort of the scariest moment in all of this.
Like I said, I spoke to Detlef on the banks of the Haw River, and as we were standing there talking, it was a beautiful spring day. The river is flowing in the back, and it feels peaceful, but these contaminants are in the water, and you can't see them, you can't taste them, you can't smell them, but they're there.
You're saying how, like, you can be out in nature and these are like invisible chemicals that you can't see, but they're still impacting us, right? So how has this impacted local communities, and what's been the response from people who live in these areas that have large amounts of PFAS?
These contaminants continue to impact daily life. I mean, if you think about it, there's still people in the Cape Fear River Basin who are using bottled water every day. Studies show that long-term PFAS exposure can lead to higher risk of certain cancers like kidney cancer or testicular cancer. It can cause high blood pressure in pregnant women. There's actually a health advisory from the state saying that pregnant women should not eat certain fish from the Cape Fear River because those fish have such high levels of PFAS exposure. I spoke to Emily Donovan with the advocacy group Clean Cape Fear. She lives in Wilmington in southeastern North Carolina. She told me that she'll usually drive her kids 30 minutes away to a different restaurant where she knows that that area has an upgraded water system.
Because we know not every water system has been able to complete their upgrades. So now they're just used to mom telling them, no, we're going to drive 30 minutes out of our way because I'm sorry you're hungry right now, but you're going to have to wait. Like we're going to go eat in this town because I know the water is safe here.
So once all this became public knowledge in 2017, were there any consequences in the wake of that? Like what happened with the company Chemours that had been dumping all this PFAS?
So in 2019, a legal consent order was reached, and Chemours is legally required to significantly reduce their PFAS discharges both into the Cape Fear River, into water, and into the air. So those reductions and enforcement of that's all still going on today. Also part of this specific legal agreement, Chemours did have to pay $12 million in civil penalties. And Chemours has reduced their PFAS discharges, but advocates would argue there's still a long way to go.
So, PFAS is not just a North Carolina issue. How does it kind of extend beyond North Carolina?
Well, PFAS is a national and international issue. These contaminants are so ubiquitous, you can find these chemicals pretty much anywhere and everywhere. I would argue, though, that North Carolina is the epicenter of this situation. I think one example of that is a couple years ago, the United Nations issued a statement saying that what Chemours did, polluting the Cape Fear River with PFAS for decades, just completely disregarded the rights and well-beings of residents. So to have an international human rights organization weigh in on this issue, I feel like it just really speaks to the gravity of the situation.
Even someone like me who's not an environment reporter, I've been hearing about PFAS for so many years. Why are forever chemicals still allowed in the state's water supply?
That's a great question. And the answer is it's complicated. And there's a lot of different parts to it. I would say one part is that PFAS is just so ubiquitous. And it's in these products that we use every day. And then these products eventually end up in a landfill. And then there's runoff pollution from that landfill that can end up in the water supply. Imagine trying to scoop up water with a slotted spoon. I feel like that's a very good visualization to get people to understand just how persistent these chemicals are. I would also like to introduce you to another chemical that is completely different from PFAS. It's called 1,4-dioxane. It's considered a likely human carcinogen, which means that, like PFAS, exposure to this chemical can make you sick. Studies show that 1,4-dioxane particularly can impact the liver and the kidneys. Some local utilities, like the local utility in Wilmington, have already installed filtration systems to get rid of PFAS. Well, now you also have 1,4-dioxane coming down the water, and that requires a totally different filtration system to get rid of 1,4-dioxane.
Oh, wow.
So this is an ongoing battle to maintain safe drinking water, right? If it's not PFAS, it's 1,4-dioxane. And maybe, who knows, maybe in another few years, it might be a completely new compound.
So there could be a new compound on the road, but regulation of that hypothetical compound moves pretty slow in comparison, right? Like it seems like the pace of new compounds cropping up far exceeds the pace of regulation.
Well, I think while all the bureaucracy plays out with getting regulations passed and what kinds of regulations should it be, it takes time. And the more time that passes, the longer that a person is exposed to these chemicals, the greater the health risk is. I've spoken to scientists and researchers about this who say the best time to implement PFAS regulation was yesterday. The second best time is today. And we can all pretty much agree that Government moves slow, but there is a timeliness in terms of the public health aspect.
Managing forever chemicals continues to be a never-ending saga in North Carolina. The plan in front of the state's Environmental Management Commission is just one attempt to control these contaminants. But as North Carolina tries to secure safer drinking water, what might regulation look like outside the state? From, say, the federal government?
They had been promised that there would be meaningful action to reduce our exposure to toxic chemicals. And what they've seen instead is that many of the actions taken, particularly by the Environmental Protection Agency, run counter to that.
Coming up, why a national grassroots movement calling for more environmental regulation is fed up with the administration they helped put in power. If you own a home, you need to know about Angie. Because whether you're dealing with daily maintenance, emergency fixes, or even a major renovation, it can be hard to find the right help. Sometimes you don't even know where to start. But Angie's been connecting people with skilled pros for over 30 years, and they've made it easier than ever to get your home projects done well. Angie gives you access to a nationwide network of tradespeople with the right skills. Experts in everything from plumbing and landscaping to roofing, remodels, and more. Just bring Angie your project, answer a few questions, and Angie provides you with nearby pros who match your needs. You can easily read verified reviews, check out photos of past work, and request and compare quotes to find your best price. Which means you could tackle that next home project in just a few taps. So the next time your home needs some TLC, join the millions of homeowners who have used Angie to care for their homes. Download the free Angie app today or visit Angie.com. That's ANGI.com. You're listening to this podcast, so I know you've got a curious mind. Here's a helpful fact you might not know yet. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average. They make it super simple. Hop over to Progressive.com, answer some questions, and you'll get a quick quote with coverage options tailored to your choices. Plus, you'll see which discounts you may qualify for, like the online quote discount, or savings for paying in full. In fact, 99% of Progressive Auto customers earn at least one discount. See if you could save when you switch to Progressive. You'll feel good about making a savvy choice. Visit Progressive.com and see if you can enjoy a little extra cash back. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $946 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2024 and May 2025. Potential savings will vary.
Hi, I'm pianist Manny X. On my new podcast, Classical Music Happy Hour, my guests and I talk about life and music, and we also like to play games. Is it a composer or is it cheese?
Oh, I know this game.
Knowing Mozart, it's probably all of the above.
It's all of the above. Is this a fake or was this a flop?
Flop.
That's more mistakes than I made in my last recital. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Will Stone, and I'm a health correspondent with NPR Science Desk.
Recently, Will has been busy reporting on MAHA, Make America Healthy Again. The movement advocates for stronger regulation in the food and pharmaceutical industries. It took shape a few years ago with the presidential campaign of Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
They care deeply about things like pesticides and chemicals and pollution and what's happening with our food system. And they saw Kennedy as a potential standard bearer, someone who could champion their cause. And I think that is really what helped birth this MAHA movement.
After RFK Jr. suspended his campaign and endorsed Donald Trump in 2024, many of Kennedy's supporters followed suit. And MAHA backing Trump is often cited as one of the reasons why he won the election.
You want a president who's going to get us out of the wars and who's going to rebuild the middle class in this country.
From the jump, the Trump administration showed signs of adopting the grassroots movement's goals, like putting Kennedy in charge of the Department of Health and Human Services. But now it looks like the honeymoon is over. Will says many in Maha have had it with the Trump administration.
There are many different factions in Maha, but I would say there's a substantial group and part of Maha that is very upset and feels to some extent betrayed by the Trump administration. They had been promised that there would be meaningful action to reduce our exposure to toxic chemicals that are in our water, our food, the air. And what they've seen instead is that many of the actions taken, particularly by the Environmental Protection Agency, run counter to that.
The Environmental Protection Agency has announced a series of cuts and rollbacks targeting key regulations.
The EPA is starting to allow the use of pesticides containing PFAS on food. It's part of
And a big issue right now has to do with pesticides. And this has been in the news recently because Trump signed an executive order to expand the production of glyphosate, which is a herbicide that's in Roundup.
Tonight, that common herbicide is at the center of a legal fight heading to the U.S. Supreme Court with implications far beyond the farm field.
And there was also the Supreme Court case where the Trump administration is actually siding with Bayer, which owns Monsanto and is the maker of glyphosate. And all of this has just inflamed this kind of simmering discontent within the movement.
It has been just very, very distressing because where we started versus where we are right now is definitely the opposite direction of where I would have thought we were going.
So Kelly Ryerson has been a longtime advocate, activist against the use of pesticides, and she also goes by the name Glyphosate Girl. So he brings us back to this whole issue with Monsanto, Bayer, Roundup, and concerns about the health impacts of glyphosate. And she has emerged now as kind of one of the influential figures in the Maha movement, particularly around pesticides and kind of our food system.
What's happened is now we've reached the tipping point where you can see what the human health effects are from a deregulatory environment. And that is something that Republicans are waking up to big time.
We spoke to a reporter in North Carolina about PFAS in the state's water supply. How has the EPA addressed PFAS specifically?
What really, I think, points to some of the tension, or what the critics would say with the hypocrisy here, is that the agency actually moved to roll back drinking water standards and delay others that had all been kind of finalized under the Biden administration for PFAS. And that has now been caught up in court. But that was going to, establish as hard limits and on what can be in water. And that's all been upended now under the administration.
These rollbacks point to a fundamental flaw in the marriage between Maha and the Trump administration. Will says even though Kennedy is in the cabinet,
Kennedy is not actually in charge of a lot of these issues. He is the head of the Department of Health and Human Services. So, the Maha people who care a lot about vaccines, for example, and other issues that have to do with the FDA, they feel they do have a champion, who can make changes there. And we've seen him do a lot. Obviously, many of these actions have been controversial. But when it comes to industrial chemicals, pesticides, that really lies with the EPA. And this is where you've seen most of the anger directed.
So would you say then that Maha isn't so much upset with Kennedy, but more so mad at the guy who runs the EPA, Lee Zeldin?
Without a doubt.
When I see Lee Zeldin talking and proclaiming hooray deregulation, I think it's completely out of touch and out of tune of the situation we're in 2026, and it just can't stand. Like, some level of regulation has to happen before we poison everything that we love, including ourselves.
But at the same time, we have in the last couple of months seen Zeldin really trying to play up his record, his Maha credentials, but often when you look under the hood a bit, it's not clear, entirely how substantive any of these actions are.
Introduce my colleague, my friend, Administrator Lee Zeldin at EPA.
Well, thank you, Secretary Kennedy. And
so a big one that occurred just in early April was this announcement that the EPA was adding microplastics and also pharmaceuticals to this list of drinking water contaminants that the EPA is required to publish every 5 years under the Safe Water Drinking Act. And we saw a big splash, calling this a historic landmark action.
And we're taking major steps in today's announcement to make America healthy again. I'm pleased to announce a landmark set of actions by EPA to safeguard.
But it turns out this is fairly routine. This list has to get published every 5 years. And I was speaking to a former EPA official under Biden who said this is basically like the waiting room where contaminants go to be ignored, meaning there is rarely any regulatory action for any of the things on this list. And he said there are literally hundreds of contaminants on this list that have never had any substantive regulatory action. So this is actually what the EPA did. Now, it could be setting the stage for meaningful interventions and monitoring of microplastics in the nation's drinking water, but it is not a guarantee based on this action. Yet, if you were to listen, it sounds very significant.
So what is all this signal for environmental regulation moving forward? It feels like the EPA has given industries the green light to just put whatever chemicals they want into the environment at this point.
You know, this administration from the outset has been very clear that it wants to make this the least restrictive environment they can for these businesses. And I think their approach has been pretty clear, and I don't see any indication it's changing significantly at this point.
The EPA isn't likely to change its tune anytime soon. But 2026 is a big election year. And whether it's pesticides or PFAS, many voters will be thinking about health and environmental policy when they go to the polls. And MAHA could be up for grabs.
How much political sway does this MAHA movement really have? It gets credited, for helping Trump, win the election. Now, to what extent is that going to be meaningful kind of from a political electoral standpoint? I don't think we really know that. And separately, we have seen that Robert F. Kennedy Jr., with his very aggressive actions on vaccines, there's been quite a bit of reporting that he has had to kind of rein that in a bit. And there's speculation that basically the Trump administration doesn't think some of these things are a winning message going into the midterms. So how that factors into these other issues related to environment and toxic chemicals remains to be seen.
If you'd like to check out more of Will Stone and Celeste Guajardo's reporting, we've dropped links in our show notes. This episode of The Broadside was produced by Charlie Shelton Ormond and edited by Jared Walker. Our executive producer is Wilson Sayre. This week's episode included audio from CBS News, PBS NewsHour, WUNC News, WWAY in Wilmington, Voice of America, C-SPAN, and WKRN News in Nashville. The Broadside is a production of WUNC News in North Carolina and is part of the NPR network. If you have feedback or a story idea, you can email us at broadside@wunc.org. If you enjoyed the show, leave us a rating, a review, or share it with a friend. I'm Anissa Khalifa. Thanks for listening, y'all. We'll be back next week.
TV has thousands of free movies and TV shows.
We're coming at you with everything we got.
This is the mindset. Free. This is the mantra. Free. This is the mindset. With movies like Pineapple Express, the entire Star Trek film franchise, and Gladiator, and TV shows like Survivor, SpongeBob SquarePants, The Fairly Odd Parents, and Ghosts, Pluto TV is always free. Huzzah! Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.